So please make welcome Tim Costello.
Good evening. It's a delight to be here. It's a delight to connect with people of kindred spirit. The sense of history, which I've been hearing over the table, of a group starting in Manchester saying we want people who otherwise wouldn't have the confidence, the class, courage because of who they are to ever think they've got anything to contribute. And we're going to organise them as Rostrum does out of Manchester is very, very inspiring. To think that those being coached agree to submit to the rules, the discipline, the formation of the Rostrum community. That's quite a countercultural moment today, when you think that all we sort of have left is the sovereign state and the rights of the sovereign individual. Everything in between, which is associational life, community life, visions of flourishing beyond individual, beyond the political system, is withering on the vine. There is this sense that the lonely individual whose rights are guaranteed by the sovereign state is at the centre. I love the fact that Rostrum has a community vision, that it invites people in to speak, to think truly and to speak clearly, to have the confidence to say something when maybe silence is the more prudent course of action because of other views and threats. But beyond that, to actually have support, to have what I've called associational life, that sense that there are others with me. I'm not alone. They'll encourage and coach me. When community groups meet, whether it's weekly or two-weekly, every second week like Rostrum, this is quite a novel thing in Australia with profoundly fragmenting community. I often say to churches that meet weekly, when you meet weekly and have a morally serious topic and spiritually serious, it's called a sermon, when you pass around the offering plate and give, when you then organise and say, what are we going to do for the homeless or refugees or people who are struggling? This is quite novel and breathtaking in Australia, where 42% of people eat their evening dinner alone, just with a TV or a laptop. That sense of community, of places to go, of people who say I matter and will listen to a speech I give and give me feedback. Some of it I may not like. However, I will learn, I will grow, and I understand they're investing in me. That actually is quite a profound countercultural phenomenon in a society that has moved to individualism. If I had time, I could talk to you about how we got to this point. I think left and right of politics are equally to blame. In terms of the left, particularly in the 60s, it was pleasure as the goal. And with the chemical liberation, drugs, and the sexual liberation, throw off the restraint, the taboos, the norms, religious, moral, family. I think that cultural left liberation ended up with individualism and loneliness. I think the right of politics did exactly the same thing. They said, you as an individual, who wants to be happy can plug your preferences into this marvellous thing called the market. It will allocate and distribute resources. It will spit back out at you wonderful brand labels. And brand labels will give you a faux sense of community, a false sense of community. Look at the handbag and the label, or the car, or where I send my kids to school. Therefore I have a tribe. Therefore I am somebody. Therefore I matter. But the result of that economic individualism and libertarianism is loneliness. That sense, still, that I'm alone. It's why I would not underestimate Rostrum, though I know you're struggling to recruit next generation. I would not underestimate Rostrum's countercultural influence where people gather and give each other the dignity of listening. At the end of the day, humans only have one question. Their one question is, do I matter? The only way you'll get to sense you matter is that other humans show respect and dignity by saying, I want to understand and hear and listen. I want to respond. That actually is profoundly important to saying I matter, I am somebody. When all of us look in the mirror, we want a better story to tell about ourselves. That's what I think in the right economic sense brand is really about. It's saying, look who my tribe is, where I have built a house, look at the postcode, the suburb, the school, look how I'm going. It's essentially a need to say, I've got a good story to tell about myself, I am somebody. That's what's going on. Sadly, it turns negative when it becomes the need to say, and I am superior to you, and I feel I can pump up my tyres by feeling superior to you. That's when it gets socially destructive. But we all do need a story to say, I'm somebody, I matter. And Rostrum, I just want to salute you for saying, keeping alive, associational life, a community, a cooperative, however Rostrum frames itself, that may be much more morally significant than the particular skills you impart in public speaking. To come along and to know that there are other people who will take what you say seriously and treat you with respect, that is quite breathtaking and important. Well, I've just brought out a memoir. On the back of this memoir, it's called A Lot with a Little. I write, I never set out wanting to be a lawyer, but ended up practicing law for 15 years. I never thought of myself as a leader, yet people see me as a leader, and even more scarily, some say they follow me. I never wanted to be ordained a reverend, but I am one of the best known reverends in Australia. I'm not a natural CEO, yet I ended up CEO of World Vision Australia for 13 years, our biggest charity. This memoir is an exploration to embrace the puzzle. I think most of us are a puzzle to ourselves. When you think about life, why it is a little scary, why Rostrum and having communities is so important is for this reason. You don't ask to be born. You're thrown up on this stage called life. You don't get to choose when you die, although maybe with some euthanasia laws that's changing. Nobody imparts to you and says, this is the purpose of the universe, this is how you fit into it, this is why you're here, go for it. You have to struggle and find out, what is this all about? This sense, am I just a biological freak in a cosmic zoo? Am I that extension of inanimate cells that somehow woke up and developed consciousness and wow, the burden of consciousness. What am I meant to do? Why am I here? What is it all about? I think no one prepares us when we have kids. The biggest responsibility of our lives, but we're young. There isn't that sense like a rostrum of this is what you'll experience and how to adapt and what to do. When you think about it, a lot of life is this pretty arbitrary, scary journey trying to make sense, trying to go, what's this all about? Well, I've written this memoir because looking back, I've tried to say, well, what has this been all about for me? My mother, who's 90, and Dad died at 97 3 years ago. When she read it, my mum said, wow, Tim, I never knew how much your father was still in your head. It is interesting that those first 7 years, give me a child till the age of 7 and I'll show you the person. I'm at 64 looking back and going, actually, I'm still the same person. If you've watched the series 7 Up, 14 Up, anyone watched this series? It's pretty interesting. At 63 up, they're going, yeah, I'm pretty much that same kid when they show the footage of them up to 7. It's really interesting. But it's a puzzle still. You go, I've ended up doing things I didn't plan. I don't quite understand if there was a guiding hand, a sense of providence, a purpose. So this memoir is for me trying to put that together. What I want to finish with is this, that in my life there were 2 ladders. One ladder was this ladder of career. I remember in year 12, my mother took me aside, said, now Tim, you've got to study hard. When I said, why? Your father and I want you to go to university. Back then only about 8% of us did. This is 1972. I studied hard, I got into university, my parents were so thrilled. They took the whole family out to celebrate at a Chinese restaurant. After the celebration and toasts, because I'd got into law at Monash University, I'd climbed the first rung of a ladder called career. My mother took me aside. She said, your father and I are so proud of you. Getting into law at Monash, wow. Then she said, but no, Tim, now that you've got into law, now you're really going to have to study hard. And I said, why? She said, look, not everyone who gets a law degree gets a job at the end, only those that get a good law degree. I thought, here's the second rung of the ladder I've got to climb. I had a great time at university and scored articles at the end of my degree. By then I had a younger brother coming on doing law. You would never have heard of him. And when I got articles, my parents were so thrilled. They took the whole family out to celebrate at the same Chinese restaurant. And after the speeches, my mother took me aside. Wow, articles, beginning a legal career, fantastic. I thought, yep, this is the third rung of the ladder, I'm making it. Then my mother said to me, Tim, you know, now that you've got articles, you know, now you're really going to have to work hard. And I said, well, why? She said, not everyone who gets articles gets kept on, only those who really do well and work hard. I thought, here's the next rung of the ladder. I ended up getting kept on at articles, and I remember thinking, there's another 6 or 7 steps. Every rung I climb, more money, bigger office, different title on my card, more social status. Right at the top there's partner of the law firm. And that's what life's about. That's the direction. Well, nothing wrong with the career ladder. But in this memoir, I'm really reflecting on a different ladder. It's the ladder I'd call vocation or calling. This ladder asks the question, why am I here? What is this all about? I remember literally sitting in the gutter with a drug heroin addicted guy up in Urban Seed. I'd set up here in the back of Little Collins Street, and I was trying to convince him to get into a detox centre we'd opened. I said words that rolled off my tongue so easily I scarcely thought about them. I said, you know what? I think God made you. What amazed me was he just burst into tears. I thought, oh dear, shouldn't have said that, he's not religious. Through the tears he said, blubbering, God made me? He said, my old man told me I'm just an accident. I've only ever felt a burden. God made me? This was a totally novel thought. You mean some purpose to my life? God made me? That's the first rung of the calling ladder. Why am I here? The second rung is, well, if there's a purpose for my life, what am I meant to do? What's it all about? Lots of different ways to answer this and different struggles to answer it. But I think to answer that question, why? What is my purpose? It's good to ask yourself a question. What is it that if I don't do it, I'm going to be poorer and the world is going to be poorer? What is it that if I don't do it, I'm going to be poorer and the world's going to be poorer? See, I think calling, vocation, is the intersection between your bliss and the world's need. It's not just all about you. I just want to be individually happy. It's also about others. This sense of bliss between your calling and the world's need. It might be your art, it might be your speaking, it might be your mentoring and coaching, it may be as a business person employing young people and giving them a start, it might be justice, nursing, teaching, it might be a lot of things. Sometimes the ladders overlap. The career ladder and the calling ladder are perfectly aligned. Fancy being paid for the very thing you're called to do. I hear teachers, nurses, lots of people say that. Let me say, sometimes they don't overlap. You can climb the next career rung, more pay, more significance, more money, and it just may pull you away from your calling. You have left less time for that art, that music, that mentoring, that caring, whatever that calling is in you. Sometimes there may be real decisions to make. Well, people say, where did my calling come from? It's really around justice. I did law, I thought it was about justice. I discovered it was mainly about making money. As a businessman, I got out, did theology, I came back and started up a legal practice in St Kilda in a church as a Baptist minister in St Kilda. Whether it's Urban Seed, World Vision, being mayor of St Kilda, whatever it's been justice. It's really been around this question. Does it have to be that some people have far more than they need and others miss out altogether? That's been the nagging question of my life. Is it natural? Is it structured that way that some people get far, far more than they need and some people totally miss out? That's my calling, pursuing that question in lots of different fields. Sometimes I might say tongue-in-cheek when people say, where did this justice thing start with you? I say, probably sharing a bedroom with my brother for 17 years. We'd have our fights. We'd wake up my father on the weekend, he'd storm in. Great dad, but not great, not happy when he was woken up on the weekend. And he'd say, I don't care who started this fight. I don't care who you think's to blame. I'm not interested in the story. I'm punishing you both, and then he would. That's when I got interested in justice. I reckon Peter started it more than me. Okay, wherever it started, I've had a sense that there is a career ladder, but the calling ladder is profoundly important. And we often only answer that calling question in community, with people feeding back to us. You seem to have a passion for. I hear you saying this many times. Aha, maybe I haven't seen it myself. It's why Rostrum is so important. Time is all we have. That's all we have in life. When someone wastes your time, they're really a thief, aren't they? Yeah. They really are. To actually give time, to listen, to be patient, to invest, to help people see the pattern of their calling, why they're here, what this has all been about, is really important. All the best for Rostrum, and it's a delight to have been with you.